Bill Gates said I will always choose a lazy person to do a difficult job because a lazy person will find an easy way to do it. What's a real life example of this? I knew a guy who had a low-level data/reporting job. He had several daily/weekly work responsibilities, including a bunch of reports that needed quite a bit of tweaking from raw data to finished product. But like I said, low level. We didn't find out until way later, but he had set up macros for each of his major responsibilities where he could. Once set up, he'd just run the macros to do his work, but then he'd, smartly, hold off on delivering the reports until just a little before the deadlines. He'd hit every assignment and was seen as reliable. He also would complain about the workload, so people would leave him with that work. I doubt he did a full hour of work a day after he set up what he did. Eventually he left the job for one with better pay. But damn did he work lazy. Also, he was smart not to reveal until the end, because had he told them about it, he would have gotten a pat on the back and would have been given a whole other workload on top of maintaining those macros/etc. Dude milked the job, not the other way around. Any good at guy will find a way to automate his job so he can sit around browsing Reddit. I left my last size admin job and the next guy called me and asked how I was doing the work of 3 people. He was going through the daily playbook and was so far behind. I asked him if he was going through the manual playbook or the automated playbook, as I had left both on my desk. Evidently my former boss had taken the automated one to do the work in the interim and never told the new hire about it. Bingo. The fact that you left 2 manuals is very kind of you though. It was a great environment and great small team, so I made sure they were okay when I left. The only reason I left is somewhere was going to pay me more than double, and they could not afford to even come close to matching it. I remember I worked in a small lit department in college and the head admin had everything automated. He'd spend the whole day playing games or watching YouTube, but he still performed all of his duties in a timely manner. One day we played a full game of Civ V while monitoring the progress of a script that updated everyone in the office from XP to Win 7. All of the work got done on time and correctly, so we really weren't doing anything wrong. If you are doing your job and nothing breaks, they ask why they have you. If something breaks, they ask why they have you. It's the old catch-22. The flip side is that most people are so technologically illiterate/lazy that performing the most basic of it functions in front of them makes you look like an ingenious wizard. It guy here who fucked up. I'm not trained in it, but in commercial shipping. When I came in the office on the first day I got the rundown and started working. I found so many systems that just didn't make sense and were completely inefficient. Like a good MOA, shipping term, I made a report and gave it to my boss. He said great ideas, go ahead. I executed them, and a month later the team went from 40 each to 25 cause it saved so much time. Sorry colleagues. My brother gave my oldest nephew $10 a week if he did all his chores without needing to be told or complaining. One day he gets home early from work and sees the neighbor kid tossing a bag in the trash. He asks him what he is doing, and the kid says he gets $5 a week to take care of a few chores. My nephew outsourced his chores. Outsourcing and child labor? This kid's destined to be a Nike CEO one day. Nephew it gotta start young Nestle has entered the chat. Now all he needs is to undercut his employee. Scare him straight by telling him the kid down the block will do it for cheaper and this quarter the numbers are lower than expected so take the pay decrease or leave. If he hadn't been caught he could have eventually gotten a raise while paying his subordinate the same. A smart parent would have given him a raise and more chores. Mowing the lawn doesn't build character. People just want the lawn mowed and don't really have any child appropriate shorthand for I'm just as lazy as you are, but I'd pay the bills so go do it. If your kid can outsource his chores, reward that. I tried doing that as a kid and got a slap on the back of the head. It was just my dad and we both hated doing the dishes, so they would stockpile. It got to the point where he offered to pay me $20 just to do them. Before I got around to it, we went down the road to my aunt's. I ended up offering my cousin $10 if he would come over and do the dishes. He accepted. I wasn't allowed to do that again. Lol, my brother was smart like this. My mom worked for Cadbury and we each received a large batch of candy, tons of chocolate. My brother, not liking sweets, decided to sell them at school. Told his teachers it was a fundraiser, so he made easily over $75. Tons of other similar things like that. I plug clocks in at midnight, so they are already set. Trip the main fuse in the house at midnight to do all the appliances too, lol. The real life hack is always in the comments. Same. My granddad puts a battery in a stopped clock in at the exact time it stopped, so he doesn't have to tweak it. An older company had a person dedicated to data entry, which boiled down to copying and pasting portions of data from text files into spreadsheet and formatting into a report. The person originally doing this job spent a full 40+ hours/week doing it, but was not very computer literate. When they retired, the company hired someone with actual skills. The new hire convinced management to let her work remotely after getting up to speed on the job. The first week at home was spent automating the entire job. The remainder of their multi-year tenure with the company was spent doing whatever they wanted, save the 10 to 15 minutes weekly to run their program and to answer the odd email here and there, all while getting paid full salary and benefits. They actually had to add in a few errors now and then to make it seem realistic. An older company had a person dedicated to data entry, which boiled down to copying and pasting portions of data from text files into spreadsheet and formatting into a report. I've worked a few places that have people doing this. Usually when they retire, the job is given to some younger person that figures out how to do it in 10 minutes on top of the rest of their normal job. In this case, since the retiring person worked full-time doing this and often struggled to meet deadlines, they hired a replacement. My GF works for an insurance company and basically spent months working on spreadsheets to compile quarterly vendor claims for the last 10 years, each quarter with thousands of rows. I just finished my manuscript in analytics. I spent a few hours with her asking exactly what she needed to do. Wrote 3 lines of code in Skite and basically saved her months of work. Now when she has to work in these projects, she runs the program and that's that. I was pretty proud of that. I work in insurance. I'm currently on Reddit because I've finished my work for the day. It's 1 PM. I started at 11 and done at 7 PM. I'm bored already. This is actually my job. I work for a local government entering new, renewed, existing and disposal of our assets. Primarily roads and stormwater, essentially anything that is near a road that the local government has to maintain. The old guy who left at 72 years old legit wrote everything down before punching it into Excel to be converted into our financial database. When I started, I was shown how the job worked and I asked, did I have to write stuff down? My boss said no, that was just his old school way of doing it. So instead I immediately entered data into Excel, skipping how long-winded first process, and cut the job time down significantly. Due to this, I got more duties and responsibilities. But it came with a raise. So I guess that's a 50/50 win. I'm doing it right now. Automated data cleaning in Python. My coworkers don't know about it, so something that takes me 10 minutes at most takes them 2 hours. Edit. For everyone who says I should share my code, I have. I even set up a private GitHub space for my team. Some have taken it up, but others, including management, do not like it. I think they feel a little threatened. What if they do know about it, and they are just better at being busy than you are? My coworker is the worst at being fake busy. I looked over at him the other day, and he was swimming. I just got a mental image of someone sitting in an office, looking over to the other side, to see their coworker splashing around in a paddling pool in the corner. My coding mentor got hired in a US government position, and he mentioned being able to automate a lot of tasks in his interview. After the interview was over, he was contacted by one of the people that were in on the interview and said basically, look, we get paid such and such a year and only work such and such hours. Do the automation, but don't say you are doing the automation. Edit, clarity. I worked goods in for an aircraft manufacturer as a summer job at university. Parts would arrive, we'd open them, and key in all the details into a terminal. That bit was long-winded. I discovered the terminal keyboard has assignable shortcuts, and set up a bunch of them for all the boilerplate such that keying in an item was about 6 keystrokes. Saved myself and my workmate hours every day, which we would spend pranking each other, other warehouse staff and staff at other sites. Made yourself more efficient and use the extra time to make your colleagues less efficient. Fairness balance meme point JPG. Made yourself more efficient and use the extra time to make your colleagues less efficient. Ron Swanson has entered the chat. Given the choice of doing something and doing nothing, I will always choose doing nothing. Unless doing something helps someone else do nothing. There's a repo on GitHub containing code based on scripts that were used by a tech employee that his coworkers discovered after he left the company. Here's a summary of his shenanigans. Edit. Repo code is based on the story, not actually from this person. Okay, so, our build engineer has left for another company. The dude was literally living inside the terminal. You know, that type of a guy who loves Vim, creates diagrams in Dot, and writes wiki posts in Markdown. If something, anything, requires more than 90 seconds of his time, he writes a script to automate that. So we are sitting here, looking through his UHM legacy. You're gonna love this. Smack my bitch up punch, sends a text message late at work to his wife apparently. Automatically picks reasons from an array of strings, randomly. Runs inside a cron job. The job fires if there are active SSH sessions on the server after 9 PM with his login. Kuma asshole punch, scans the inbox for emails from Kuma DBA at our clients. Looks for keywords like help, trouble, sorry etc. If keywords are found, the script shares into the client server and rolls back the staging database to the latest backup. Then sends a reply, no worries mate, be careful next time. Hangover punch, another cron job that is set to specific dates. Sends automated emails like not feeling well / gonna work from home etc. Adds a random reason from another predefined array of strings. Fires if there are no interactive sessions on the server at 8:45 AM. And the Oscar goes to fucking coffee punch. This one waits exactly 17 seconds. Then opens a telnet session to our coffee machine. We had no frickin' idea the coffee machine is on the network, runs Linux and has a TCP socket up and running, and sends something like size brew. Turns out this thing starts brewing a mid-sized half calf latte and waits another 24 seconds before pouring it into a cup. The timing is exactly how long it takes to walk to the machine from the dude's desk. Holy sh*t I'm keeping those. I love this one. Can never find it when I want to tell someone about it though. I don't like the one about Kuma. That seems too risky. How incompetent is this DBA that he fucks up often enough to warrant an automated script? Years ago as a student I got a job stocking shelves. Guys were carrying the heavy boxes, put them on the floor and bend each time to pick up the items to put on the shelves. I was maybe a light 100 pounds woman, and carrying the boxes was just killing me physically. So one day I had an idea. I put the box on a rolled desk chair and rolled it around. No more carrying and no more bending. Funny thing is that, instead of doing the same thing, most of the guys called me lazy and kept carrying the heavy boxes just to prove how strong they were. Now they have special rolling carts to do the job. Screw lazy, screw strong. I would have copied you without a second thought. Hell yeah. You don't get bonus pay for having an aching back. An engineer spent hours developing a program so they could start the coffee pot from their desk and not have to wait for coffee when arriving in the break room. That's pretty much how the first webcam was created too. Lazy computer engineers wanted to see if there was coffee in the pot. I'm so unbelievably happy that this is true. https://www.bbc.co.uk/news/technology 20,439,301. It didn't vary very much, explains Dr. Stafford Fraser. It was either an empty coffee pot or a full one, or in more exciting moments, maybe a half-full coffee pot, and then you'd have to try and guess if it was going up or down. Every year in the Canadian winter, power lines would fail due to the weight of the snow. It took many days to build up enough to break a line, so they employed a team to walk the routes and shake the poles to loosen the snow. One day they saw a bear shaking the poles and realized that if they could get the bear to do it, they wouldn't need to walk the route. So they gave one guy a bucket of honey and he'd walk the route painting the sides of the poles with honey to attract the bears. It worked for a few more years, but this still takes a lot of time to do. So then they had the idea of flying a helicopter along the route with a trained sniper with honey paintballs that he'd shoot the poles with. On its maiden flight, the helicopter passed the lines and the downdraft blew away all of the snow. The flights continue to this day, but without the sniper. Typus and grammar fixed by u/br Thirdbird. Wait, what? Is this true? If so, perfect example. Just had to Google it. It's one of those stories that floats around everywhere, but I've never seen any real evidence that it's actually true. I'm forced to believe this is false. Bears usually hibernate in the winter, which is when it typically snows. Although with Canada, who can say, maybe they get snow in July. I was invited to my friend's yearly apple picking. It was a full day of apples and kids, and filling a truck forced the idea. I'm lazy and suggested we make the process more efficient with tarps on the ground. We managed in 2 hours what historically took all day. We didn't even get to the picnic lunch. Essentially, I ruined apple picking. IG. What did the tarp do to save time? I'm guessing that they were shaking the trees, then picking up the apples that fell. So with the tarp down, all they had to do was grab the corners and pour into a container. Basically how you harvest olives. Yup, but I love watching that machine go at those trees. My ex-boss gave me an Excel sheet, 124.000 rows Excel sheet. Had all the company customer data per row, twice. In some of those duplicates there was an error. She needed me to go over the list one row by row to check for mistakes and mark all the faulty entries I could find. Through 124.000 rows. She wanted me to do that using the arrow down key in my mouse. I thanked her. I sat down, invested half an hour into Google, copy pasted some parts of this formula, then some parts of that. Finally I had figured out the formula. I double clicked the tiny rectangle so that the formula gets applied on all rows. Worked like a charm. I stood up, got myself a coffee, talked to some colleagues. Then I went to my boss. She had anticipated that I would need 3 days for this task. When I was back less than an hour later, she thought I hadn't understood the task or maybe a follow-up question. I will never forget the expression on her face when I told her I was done. There were 6 faulty entries. A year and a half later I enrolled into computer science at university, where I will finish my undergrad this summer. Imagine doing it their way. To find 6 fucking errors. Imagine a company having its 60,000 plus CRM records stored in Excel, fully duplicated, and half of that with errors. As you know, our students' records are stored on a Microsoft Paint file. which I was assured was future-proof. The dean. Bro, you're smart but not wise. Should have continued to talk to coworkers and browsed Reddit with coffee for at least another day, maybe a day and a half, then told your boss you were done with the formula. You could have said, yeah, I spent like 8 hours the first day and another 4 today, realized there must be a better way, then spent like another 6 hours making this sick formula. That way you get like 2.5 days of just chill plus all the benefits of showing your boss how capable you are with the automating things. OFC make it seem that this automation was a one-off thing, so she doesn't expect you to do it again. When I first started as an analyst, I took over for a series of old school guys. The first time I did something like this, I was immediately called into my supervisor's office. He proceeded to explain to me, if I continued to finish things immediately, how my workload would increase from higher up. We set up a plan to turn things in just a little earlier than expected. But he also told me he expected me to use the extra time to improve other things around the office, including taking online classes and learning new skills. He moved on and I, due to improved skills, advanced quickly. Best supervisor I ever had. Learned a ton of life skills from him. Or don't mention the automation at all. Show up with it done at the end of day 2, and your boss just thinks you're a really hard worker. A lot of bosses value time on the clock, rather than the actual production you do anyways. I don't know if this is a true story, but kind of fits your request. There was a manufacturing plant that made toothpaste. One year, for some reason, there ended up being an unusually high number of empty boxes being shipped out. So in order to stop that from happening, the head of the company hired a couple engineers to develop a system to catch any empty boxes, so they didn't get shipped with the boxes that actually had the toothpaste tubes in them. The engineers developed a system that, if the box weighed below a certain amount, the system would stop, and a worker would have to go remove the box and start everything up again. The person in charge loved the idea and implemented it immediately. And right from the get-go, the number of empty boxes shipped dropped to near zero. The head of the company wanted to go see the system in action, so he goes and visits the plant one day and notices a huge fan right by the assembly line. Very confused as it wasn't hot, he asked the plant manager why the fan was there. The plant manager said the workers were tired of stopping what they were doing to remove an empty box, so they just hooked up a fan to blow the empty boxes off the scale before the system recognized it was empty and shut everything off. So laziness led to a more efficient and cost-effective plan. Lol, that urban legend has been going around forever. Seems to be a different product every time you hear it. That's how it works. They just change the product and boom, you have a different story, which itself is just another case of someone being lazy. Back in high school, a lot of kids used to walk through his park to get home/to school. A portion of the path went into the woods because it was just quicker than walking the actual trail. At one point in the walk through the woods, you had to go up this small but tedious hill. Nothing major, but it took like 10 seconds of hard work to go up it. You couldn't go around because one side was a small cliff to the creek below and other side had dense trees. One summer, a bunch of us got together and decided to just dig through that hill to make it flat. It took like 14 of us 3 good days to get through it. It was a hard 3 days, but it was definitely worth it. Saved 10 seconds of hill climbing every morning and afternoon, 150 plus days of the year. And it wasn't just us, but hundreds of other kids who took the same party every day. Sometimes you need to put in a lot of work so your future selves can enjoy the easy way out. Some future railroad surveyors right here. Walkie-talkies. In every job I've ever had, these things make your day far less labor intensive if used correctly. Plus it's just fun saying stuff like "Roger that" and "over and out." Over means you're expecting a response from the other party. Out means you're done with the conversation. Over and out would mean you're expecting a response and you're done with the conversation. Don't do it. Good God, I wish we had these things. Spent 20 minutes of my coffee break at 3 AM trying to call the plant in an area with next to no service so they could let me in the building because my dumbass left my wallet inside. Didn't get my coffee either. Didn't get my coffee either. You cold checked on the webcam. Does Alexander and the Gordian knot count? A complex knot that, according to prophecy, was to be undone only by the person who was to rule Asia, and that was cut, rather than untied, by Alexander the Great. To be fair, imagine you are the priest, and this guy just cut your knot. And he is holding a very sharp sword, and has a large army outside. Would you dispute the legitimacy of his way of solving it? No, but I would roll my eyes very heavily. Probably sigh too. Wasn't that the same dude who liked a guy living in a barrel? Yeah. The barrel dude was called Diogenes, who was a philosopher who was famous for founding the school of Cynic philosophy. He gave up all of his possessions apart from a barrel and a small bowl which he drank from. He was famous for jacking off in public, and, when Alexander the Great visited him and asked him what he could do for him, Diogenes' response was that he should move because he was blocking the sun. He also threw away his bowl when he saw a kid drinking directly from his hands. He'd also stand outside brothels and shout, "A beautiful whore is like poisoned honey." People would give him money to shut up. When he had enough money he'd go inside the brothel. Diogenes sounds like the type of guy you want to have a beer with Madlad. The clerk was asked to bring 145 white papers into the office. He doesn't want to count the papers manually, so he printed 145 blank sheets and took them in. Smart. He used a machine that counts as one of its functions, but not the primary function, to do the counting for him. It's just enough outside of the box that most people wouldn't think to do it at all. Plus, as a bonus, they're all nice and warm. The entire miscellaneous kitchen tools section at bed, bath, and beyond. I don't need an avocado slicer or a lemon squeezer or an automatic chopper / dicer, but lazy old me definitely puts them to good use. Ironically, these things were not created for lazy people originally, but for people with disabilities, and also very busy restaurant owners. Unfortunately, a lot of these products have to be marketed like time-saving devices and convenience gadgets to justify production, which is what leads to a lot of the weird product memes. Like sure, you can make fun of a little claw tool that helps you put on your socks without bending over, but elderly, ill, and disabled people sure are glad that tool exists. Me. I automate shit all the time at work to make daily routine jobs more easy. I write manuals with screenshots with arrows indicating where to click or where to fill in what. Whenever I write a manual, I assume that whoever reads it is a complete idiot, so that whenever customers call for the same questions again, I just send them to the online manual I created. No need to type it out again by email or explain it again by phone. I have a friend who is a little slow about finding stuff on a new program on her PC. When Carl Friedrich Gauss, the famous German mathematician and physicist, was in elementary school, around 1784, his class was assigned the busy work task of adding all the numbers from 1 to 100, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, and so on. This usually kept the class quiet for half an hour or so. 7-year-old Cole was sitting quietly with the correct answer, 50-50, while the rest of the class was just starting. So the surprised teacher asked him how he came up with the solution. He replied that he added 1 and 100 and got 101. Then he added 2 and 99 and got 101. 3 plus 98 equals 101, and so on. He realized there was a pattern of 50 pairs of numbers with each pair adding up to 101. And 50x 101 equals 50-50. I wish I had this gift, to be inquisitive about number patterns. I don't trust or follow my instincts enough in maths. I had to carry groceries into the house when I was a kid. I didn't want to make multiple trips, so I tied several bags to the belt loops on my pants, to do it in one trip. Why didn't you just run your belt through the back handle loops? Would save a crap load of time. I was dumb little kid. I have no idea. I just remember seeing a cartoon where one of the characters said, "Work smarter, not harder," and I was determined. It might have been Chip Endale, Rescue Rangers. One of my favorite stories from my youth was the tale of the man who was too lazy to fail. I got fed up with handwriting itemized suborders at work, so I set up a spreadsheet that you can just fill out. Then I got tired of having more than one program open and not being able to search within and among those order sheets, at least not automatically or easily. So I'm having our file maker guy integrate it into our greater ordering and invoicing system. I was frustrated at the pointlessness of sorting a giant pile of paper invoices from an unpaid stack to a paid stack every month, so I just used the accounting software to keep track. I became so irritated with having to fill out a multi-page, printed spreadsheet for every single order, sometimes just one item, 2 pages in, and frequently, there would be those pesky itemized suborders that I condensed the items into most used, put them all on one easy to read sheet, and encouraged my coworker to simply write out the more uncommon items at the bottom. Basically, I hate busy work, and paper invariably leads to busy work. I have tried to reduce the use of paper in our office, but have not been entirely successful. We have to have written order forms available, because sometimes the orders are coming in too fast to be able to type it all quickly and correctly, and have to keep some paper records for things like organic, FDA, and Lister audits. But all in all, I'd say my absolute hatred of filing has reduced busy work here by at least half. Well, I worked in a graphics design studio as an intern. They mostly had me practice and do some basic stuff their head designers was too busy to do. One was a real estate ad. It had a few basic templates, but it was all kinds of scatterbrained. I would spend 5 to 10 minutes trying to find the right layer for all the pictures, and had to mess with way too much. So I made copies of the files, and made one for each template. I labeled everything, made it so the images on top of each other wouldn't clip into the lower ones like the previous did, so on. You could be in and out of the template in 2 to 3 minutes. Showed my boss the difference, and he had this face of, "Well shit." He said the next day that if I was a graduate he'd hire me because I was better than the people sending applications in. In short, I made an overly complicated / unorganized thing the opposite, and my boss was actually sad he couldn't hire me. He said the next day that if I was a graduate he'd hire me. This is a strange attitude. I've never known any kind of art or graphics place to care one iota about degrees. Programming. A lazy programmer will think all the possible ways of doing a single simple task, spend hours of programming, and troubleshoot a program to automate something you can do yourself in 15 minutes. I've been there. It's a great feeling when you get something to work in a click of a button,